Welcome to the Live Well, Perform Better podcast. My name is David Duggan, and I'm the director of Below the Line, an Irish-based consultancy specialising in helping people, teams and organisations raise their levels of consciousness, inner potential and performance. I am part of a team made up of experts from the worlds of business, elite sport, adventure and health and well-being. We are coaches, mentors and advisors to some of the world's biggest companies and organisations, as well as smaller businesses, entrepreneurs and people looking to make their mark in the world. Our guiding mantra at Below the Line is live well, perform better. What does that mean, you might ask? Good question. Maybe the easiest way to describe it from our perspective is finding the formula that works for you when it comes to things like looking after your physical and mental health, running your business, developing your career, leading your people, or simply being able to show up as brilliantly as possible into your own life, both for yourself and those around you. That's why each week I sit down with a member of our team or an invited guest for a conversation that focuses on the question, what do the words live well, perform better mean to you? This question is a way into exploring with people from a range of different backgrounds, industries and disciplines. What are the practices, techniques, habits or ideas that they use to help them to show up and be at their best in all areas of their lives? Whether that's as CEOs, leaders or managers, or as parents, family members or friends. We keep it short and sweet so that you can extract all the good stuff and get on with the rest of your day and hopefully put some of our knowledge, experience and expertise into play for yourself. This week I'm delighted to welcome another very special guest, Michael Kelly. Michael is the founder of GIY, aka Grow It Yourself, a social enterprise with a simple but powerful mission, helping people to live healthier, happier and more sustainable lives by growing some of their own food. Michael joined us to tell us about his career path, which began with working in IT and has since blossomed into a multifaceted portfolio of activity that now takes in writing books and columns, producing television series on Amazon Prime and RTE, as well as running the GIY business, which continues to go from strength to strength. Along the way, we also delved into his personal routines and habits, his approach to leadership, and the importance and impact of the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai on his life and business. You can subscribe at www.belowtheline.ie, where you can stay up to date with our podcast, as well as our exclusive online events and sessions, including our Press Pause coaching community. Thanks for listening, and now, on with the show. Start by first of all saying, Michael, thanks very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And my traditional first question on this podcast is, please tell me, why do you do what you do?
Nice, easy one to start. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Why do I do what we do? Well, I suppose I'm a passionate believer in the idea that our food system needs to change, and I suppose my journey started a long time ago. I in my early 30s, I was kind of, into food, but not really thinking about where my food came from. And I had a kind of genuine sort of road to Damascus moment in the supermarket one evening, where some garlic I was about to buy, I realized it was from China. And it just sort of really kind of shook me out of my complacency about the food system. The fact that it was, this tiny little thing had traveled so far around the world and was, for sale for 50 cents or whatever it was. I saw kind of brought home to me the lunacy of the food chain. And so I started growing my own garlic. Up to that point, I had no green fingers whatsoever. I hadn't a clue what I was doing, but managed to grow some garlic successfully, and just got completely bitten by the bug of food growing and this sense of sort of empowerment and joy of being able to grow food myself. I felt like God. So that was how I started my own journey. And then I started GIY in 2008 as an organization, really to kind of promote food growing, and I suppose that belief that what I had noticed was that even though I was only growing maybe 5 or 10% of the food that that we were eating as a family, it started to shift the other 90%, if that makes sense. Like, I was making different different food decisions, more sustainable food decisions, like eating more plants and less meat, and wasting less food and buying more local and seasonal or organic food and so on. So it just completely changed my life. And I suppose, they say there's no zealot like a convert. I kind of felt if I could do it when I was so clueless, and given the changes it wrought in my life, I just wanted everyone else to experience it as well. So GIY is it's a social enterprise that tries to get people growing their own food around the world, and that's what we do, and that's why I do it.
You describe it as being very, very simple, but in terms of, look, this happened and then that happened. But I'm sure, obviously, there's been plenty of speed bumps and all that type of stuff along the way. But what had you been doing prior to setting up GIY?
Yeah, so I worked in IT before that, and so it was a big change. And originally, like, GIY was a kind of a voluntary, it was a community led organization, and I suppose just it was over time it shifted into being a kind of a paid role for me and for others. So, but you're absolutely right. It on the outside, from the outside looking in, I suppose GIY probably looks, we've gone on a very kind of linear journey, and have grown more or less consistently since the beginning in terms of the number of people we're reaching and the number, the people we have on the team and all of that. But it's been more like a squiggly line, as they say in that ad. It's very, there's been some tremendous highs and some lows as well that we've had to navigate, and that's, I think that's just the part of life as well. So, but ultimately, it's been a hell of a ride, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of that journey, do you feel you're kind of tapping into the zeitgeist at the moment, or were you slightly ahead of the curve, or is it two things coming together, do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think we feel like we've been tapping into the zeitgeist in phases over the years, like, and it's a bit cyclical, where sometimes you feel like you've a bit of an open door with people, and then other times it's a bit more of a push. Like when we started in 2008, obviously the arse had just fallen out of the economy in Ireland. People were very rattled and very kind of feeling very insecure about the kind of pillars of society, I suppose, and trying to save money and so on. So that was the sort of motivation for people back then, I think. And then, obviously climate change, I think, has been very, very big in people's minds, particularly like up to maybe 2017, 2018. So I think there was a motivation for people to sort of try and reduce their own, personal carbon footprint around food, and maybe do things a little bit differently and live a bit more sustainably. And then obviously COVID happened, and it went absolutely bananas because people were stuck at home, and they were looking for things to do again, feeling insecure and afraid of what was going on. And so I think a lot of us went to sort of hobbies and activities that would make us feel a bit more secure, and food growing is part of that. And the sourdough baking craze was sort of part of that too. And that continued obviously for 2 years, and now it's back to sort of cost of living, I think, at the moment. We're coming out of COVID, and we're out and about more in the world, but I think people are very conscious of potentially saving some money by growing some of their own food. And we would always say to people, for a beginner with a small amount of space, you can reasonably expect to save maybe 500 quid a year by growing veg and fruit yourself. So it is a very good motivation for people. So I suppose we're trying to, in the periods where it's big, it's sort of at the forefront of people's minds, we're trying to sort of just grab onto that and sort of go at it. And then there's other periods where I feel like we're having to work a bit harder to do it.
It seems to me, as I said, on the outside, at the periphery of all this stuff, but that market forces generally, they're the things that have traditionally shaped consumer behavior. But I wonder, do we reach a point, or do you think we're going to reach a point where actually it's going to be environmental forces that gain the upper hand and will force consumers to start thinking differently?
Yeah, and it's starting to break through already. I think. I mean, already it's only April, and we've seen veg shortages on the shelves in supermarkets already this year because of climate change affecting the climate patterns in the two countries where we import most of our veg from, Holland and Spain. They've had horrendous harvests, and so that's why there was no tomatoes and peppers and things like that on the shelves in March in supermarkets. And that's happening more and more often now. Like we've had, for example, in Ireland, 3 droughts in the last 5 summers, which is unheard of. I mean, even when I started growing my own food 20 years ago, like, you never needed to water veg outside in an Irish summer. There was always plenty of rain and plenty of moisture in the soil. And now, our summers are getting drier, and just overall the climate's getting more unpredictable. And for the home grower, that's sort of a pain in the ass, but for the commercial growers, that's absolutely catastrophic. And so I think it's only going to get more unpredictable in the years ahead. And the food system, which is such, like, it's such a monolith now. It's dominated by 10 or 12 sort of main crops that we eat around the world, and all of the power concentrated in the hands of a few small companies and so on. So it's this huge system which is actually very, very top heavy and very insecure in some ways. And so I think that's why people feel when they grow some of their own food, they're just taking back control over this very important part of our lives a little bit, and restoring a bit of sanity into the food system at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people listening to this will know, or if they don't, we'll let them know now. Obviously, you've got a series out on RTE at the moment, Food Matters, which I've seen a few episodes of. But I mean, this is directly covering all this stuff and really trying to lift the lid for people on what's actually happening out there. In terms of the series, what has been the biggest takeaway for you, or the biggest message that you think you're trying to get out to people?
Well, we went on a bit of a journey with the series as well, and in GIY we talk about this idea of food empathy a lot, which is a phrase we coined to try and explain, like, what happens when people grow some of their own food, and this shift in behavior and knowledge and attitudes to food that I referenced earlier on. And we wanted to bring people on a bit of a food empathy journey. So I did a series for RTE a couple of years ago called Grow, Cook, Eat, which was very much about the nuts and bolts of how to grow food. But I think we wanted to bring that audience then on the next step in that journey, and explore some of those kind of food empathy themes. So eating more plants, wasting less food, supporting local producers, food pollution, and loving soil and the seasons and so on. So that's what we wanted to do. But I think it was a journey of sort of exploration for me, and hopefully for the viewers, that we went and met people all over Ireland and projects that are doing amazing things in this space. And we're definitely not trying to beat people over the head with it. I think we're just trying to show here's an alternative, and let people make up their own minds about whether that's an alternative they want to embrace or not. And I think the debate often in food gets very polarized, very Punch and Judy. Like, you're either a vegan or a meat lover, and so on and so on. Whereas I think it's far more nuanced than that, and you just need to have an intelligent conversation with people and let them make up their own minds.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's striking me as I listen to you is, it seems to me you're always trying to strike that balance between passion and resonance, because too much passion can turn people off, or make them just go, listen, get out of my face kind of thing. Whereas it sounds to me you're trying to be just more, present some stuff to people and allow people to make up their own minds about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it. So like in the episode about eating more plants, and we deliberately called it that as opposed to don't eat meat, you know. It was very much about, you know, having real balance in it, and we started the episode having a meal here in Grow HQ, with a beef farmer and a dietitian and a young climate activist. And rather than sort of asking them, you know, what's your position, or how do you feel about this, we sort of asked them to try and tease out what do you agree on? Like, do you agree on anything? And actually they did agree on something, which was it was just as well. Otherwise, the experiment would have fallen a bit flat. But like, they did agree that we do need to eat more plants. Even the beef farmer agreed with that, you know. And so I think that's progress, and that's gives me hope that that's the way to have these discussions, to have a bit of an impact, because the polarized extremes are not working, you know.
In terms of our strap line here in Below the Line, it's live well and perform better. And one of the reasons we do the podcast is to ask people just what does that mean to them based on their own perspective and their experience. So yeah, please tell me what does that mean to you, if anything at all.
Well, I think the first half of that strapline is the important bit, like the live well. I think the performing better kind of comes naturally from that. And to me, living well is a sort of a combination of a whole factor of or a whole combination of different factors, like around diet and nutrition, around exercise, around spirituality and mindfulness and so on. It's all in the mix there. I kind of love this sort of concept of Ikigai, this Japanese you know, concept that sort of speaks to your reason for living, you know, trying to find the thing that you're meant to do. I feel very, very fortunate that I think most of the time I have Ikigai, and it's made up, it's usually sort of presented as four circles, like a Venn diagram. And it's like you're doing something that you really love, number one. And that's, you know, I worked in a job I really didn't love for 10 years. So I know what the flip side of that is like. That's not much fun. And we spend so much time of our lives working that I think it's a shame to sort of write off such a huge percentage of your life as just, you know, work time. So I think that's really important. Then the second one is something you're really good at, and you know, I'm not brilliant at everything. I'm definitely not, but I do feel like I've what I'm really good at is communicating how you can change your life around food, and grow your own food and the benefits of that, and teach people how to do it. Like that's the sort of, that's my superpower, as it were. Third one is that which you can get paid for properly, which is really important. And I think our sector, the social enterprise sector, we're not very good at that. Sometimes we don't pay ourselves well enough, and I think you need a proper wage for the work you're doing. And you know, it's no point in working at something you love and that you're really good at if you're on the breadline. Like, you can't live well, I think, if that's the case. And then the final one, and I think it's the most profound and beautiful of them all, is that which the world needs. You know, so if you can take all of those things and combine them into something that the planet or people on the planet really need, then that's the best of all, because that's meaning and purpose, and that's what gets you out of bed in the morning. So I think it's a lovely way, and you know, to sort of, if you don't feel like you're in that space, and I didn't for a long time, if you sit down and sort of maybe draw those four circles and try and figure out, like, what are those things, and maybe start a bit of a transition towards that, I think that's a way to live well. And I think performance, you know, is built into the center of that as well.
What are the practices or habits that you engage in to help you just show up and do what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think like, ironically, what I've learned is to sort of feel stress-free and carefree and live well, to use your phrase. you need to be very disciplined, like, which is a sort of a slight slight dichotomy. And for me, that means probably three things. The first is diet, and I'm not I'm not a sort of extreme eater or anything like that, but I do, like, I stick to a pretty sensible Mediterranean diet. I gave up meat a few years ago. Eat a lot of fish and veg and just whole foods, I guess. That helps me feel well. Second one is exercise. Like, I think for a long time in my 30s, and probably the first half of my 40s, I kind of kidded myself to sort of say I was kind of fit and doing plenty, whereas actually I was maybe running twice a week, or 3 times a week or whatever. And actually, I think you need to be doing something every day. I think exercise is like a reset on your mood and your body. It helps you feel like, it helps you be the best version of yourself, I think. So I'm really disciplined about getting 30 to 40 minutes of exercise every day, and it could be a walk, could be a run, could be in the gym or whatever, swimming, doesn't really matter, but anything to get you moving. And that's been really transformative, I think, for my health. Making that shift to, like, every day, like being really careful about that. And then the last one is a morning routine, and you hear people speaking to this a lot, and it's a really important part of it for me. I get up around 6 a.m. It's like it's not an extreme, like, get up at 4 or whatever thing, but just that hour of time before the rest of the family gets up is like, it's ironic that you get up early, feels like a sacrifice, but actually you're creating more time, and you're creating time for yourself during the day. So I do a little bit of yoga. I do a little bit of, so there's a bit of movement, I suppose, first of all, and then small amount of meditation. Like, I'm not a guy that sits on a cushion endlessly or whatever. I couldn't do that, but I do a guided meditation or whatever for 7 to 10 minutes. I have a kind of a drink that I drink every morning that just feels like a bit of a reward after the yoga and meditation. And then I do a bit of mindset work. So just reading an inspirational book or passage, or reading my goals and intentions or whatever. Just, so it's those three things, I suppose. You have a bit of movement, you have a bit of mindfulness, and you have a bit of mindset work. And that really sets me up for the day. And I just find if I don't do that, the day is different. I don't feel as carefree, as positive, as I'm better able to handle stress when I do it, and so on. So it's a critical thing. As I said at the beginning, just to have the discipline to do those things, I think, ironically, just makes you feel you can handle more. You're more resilient, and just enjoying life, like feeling positive and feeling feeling happy. That's the goal, I suppose, on top of all of the work and the achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Could I ask you a question just about leadership? And obviously you've got a big team around you that's been growing, and will no doubt continue to grow. But what do you have particular values or a particular approach that you like to take to underpin how you lead the people around you?
I suppose, like, for me, I think everyone who works in GIY, like, believes in the sort of the mission and the goal of what we're trying to achieve. I think everybody is kind of bought in. We're all sort of bought into that, and we've a very clear kind of North Star, which is we're trying to teach the world how to grow food. Like, so I think we're really clear about why we do what we do and what we're trying to achieve. So I think that's the first thing. I would hope that I kind of sort of lead by example on that, and that people feel inspired by that mission. I definitely, we work very hard. Like, I think it's a common thing across the sector and in any mission focused organization that people, we work really hard, and we do a lot with a very small, a small team. So I think we're incredibly hardworking. We're like very resilient. I think we've had a couple of huge knocks over the years. And I think the ability to sort of bounce back and keep going is kind of 90% of success, really. And yeah, I think like my trust equation, like what I expect from the people around me, is that they get stuff done. That they do what they say they're going to do, and beyond that, like I'm not a micromanager. I'm not sort of I don't care where people are and what hours they're putting in, as long as they get the stuff done that they say they're doing, and do it with passion and purpose and pride. So I suppose that'd be it. I guess as I don't know, I'd call it a strategy, but that's the way it's worked out anyway.
Yeah, sure. And in terms of, again, it's just staying on the theme of leadership, are there, or even just more broadly, kind of purpose and values and things like that, but are there people that you kind of take inspiration from, or you mentioned, there's some books and stuff that you might dip into in your part of your morning routine, but are there people that you kind of use to kind of take some inspiration or a bit of learning from to help you do what you do?
Yeah, like I love podcasts. Like I listen to podcasts all the time when I'm exercising and in the car and stuff like that. And there's like we're so lucky we live in an age where there's like just endless there's endless podcasts out there that are just fantastic. I love Dr. Chatterjee, Feel Better, Live More. That podcast is just phenomenal. I love the High Performance podcast. I love Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast as well. Loving what Niall Breslin's doing around kind of I think it's Where's My Mind, is it? Lots of food shows, like the food program on BBC, and politics and whatever I can get. I just finished Bertie Ahern's podcast about the Good Friday Agreement, and I think as I said, we're just so lucky to live in a time when you've got that sort of that content at your fingertips, so accessible. So, but I think from a kind of a values perspective, again, I think having sort of core values that are sort of, that mean a lot to you is really important as well. And I think you learn then from people you admire and so on. So for me, like, I think compassion is one. I think it's something that sometimes I have to work at, particularly when you're time pressed. I think you kind of can sort of forget to be compassionate sometimes. Definitely kind of hard work and resilience. Optimism. I'm a very optimistic person. I always believe things will work out for the best, and they usually do. And I suppose courage and integrity, those kind of things. They're the kind of important sort of values for me to live my life, hopefully.
Great. I've only two more questions to ask you. Next question is just the one piece of advice you might give to anyone who's looking to live well and perform better, again from your own perspective as you see it.
Yeah, well, I think I'd come back to that that Ikigai idea. Like, I think if you can find a purpose in your life and find that reason you've been sent here, I think that's the number one thing. And I know that's a very difficult thing for people, and the shift for me from a regular job to doing what I do now wasn't an easy shift. Like, it's the hero's journey, so I don't think you can ever expect that to be easy, but it's just a completely different way to live your life, not to have this dividing line between work and life. I think that's a terrible way to go through your life. I think if you still have time, just find that thing you were sent here to do and go do that. That's the and I am conscious it sounds like very glib advice, for someone who's maybe stuck in a job they don't like, but I think we're at a sort of a point in human history where we need people to step up and bring their passion and their skill to things that the world really needs. And I think if you can figure out what that is, that's what you should do. And you really, this phrase that you'll never work in your life, you'll never work a day in your life if you can find something you love to do. I think it's a bit glib, and I don't really believe it, but I do, because you work your ass off. You work incredibly hard, and there's very difficult times, but I understand the germ of truth that's in that, because it's sort of, it feels different. I don't have that Sunday night, Monday morning dread. I don't have that demarcation between my work life and my personal life. It's all just life and purpose and meaning. And I feel very, very lucky to be in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to be. And then, lastly, for anyone looking to find out more about you or GAY in general, where's the best place for them to go? And maybe an addendum to that is, what's coming up next or down the pipeline for you and your team, etc.
Yeah, well, the TV series, as you mentioned, Food Matters, is on at the moment. You can check that out on RT Wednesday nights at 8:30 on RT1 or the RT player. Our old series, Grow Cook Eat, is up on Amazon Prime still. People watching that around the world. Loads of books and things out there. Our website, goy.ie, is brilliant resources for people who are interested in growing their own food and exploring these issues further, like loads of free content and online courses and information about our campaigns and programs and things. So that's probably the central place to go. What's coming up next? We're very hopeful that Food Matters will be commissioned for a second series. So I'd be working on that in the second half of the year. We're trying to build out. We've an urban farm here in Waterford, but we're trying to get our hands on a proper farm and set up a kind of a centre for regenerative agriculture. So that's kind of big on my agenda at the moment, and really just trying to get out there around the world and inspire people to give food growing a chance. And that's going to keep us busy for the foreseeable future, I think.
It sure will, absolutely. And we're GI Wires here in this house. We bought one of the online courses there recently, so we have we're starting small, bit of rocket, bit of lettuce, some tomatoes growing, but I can certainly attest to the benefit and the power of the online courses as well. So yeah, absolutely. But that concept of food empathy, that really resonated with me when you mentioned it. And the other interesting thing has been our daughter here at home, who's 8 and is just fascinated by the process as well. So we can see she's getting hooked on it as well, which is equally important too.
That's brilliant, and kids have none of the hang-ups, I think, that we have as adults about it. They're very good at it, I find, as well. And our kids, certainly when they were younger, they'd be much more likely to eat things that they'd been involved in growing, So great way and I think that'll follow your daughter through her life. She'll always remember those experiences and think differently about food as a result. So that's a phenomenal gift you're giving her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks to you as well. So thanks a million. And I guess I'll just say, Michael, thanks a million for being a guest on the podcast and giving me your time. It's been a fascinating conversation. I think you've given people a load of, no pun intended, food for thought from this conversation. And I wish you continued success and all the best.
Thanks a million, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard and you want to stay in touch with us, then please head over to www.belowtheline.ie to subscribe to our mailing list and to explore our upcoming programs and events. Until then, take care and see you next time.